everybody, and welcome to Microsoft Ignite Studio. I'm Jeremy Chapman.
And I'm Shobit Sahai.
So on this show, we're going to have a look at something brand new, something called Advanced Threat Protection, really show you the latest in protecting email through Office 365.
That's right. We're going to take a look at the latest and greatest technologies that we are bringing in Exchange Online and Office 365 to consistently protect you against the phishing attacks.
And don't worry, we have a great demo lineup in store, but we've also had a lot of these technologies in place for a while, right? We've had things like Exchange Online protection. So what's the difference between that and what we're doing now?
Well, we have had protection in a place for a while now, but then attackers around the globe are getting smarter, and at the same time, some companies get attacked more. So as Microsoft, we have to evolve our defenses to make sure we are protecting against those threats, whether or not those are known or unknown.
And one of the things, this actually will work with Exchange on premises, right?
That's right. I mean, you can use the new capabilities against the Exchange on-prem as well. You just need to connect to Exchange Online Protection, and the same capabilities can be used with your on-prem mailboxes. And that's really the key, because we're not letting you move your mailboxes, but you still get that same solid protection.
And that's really important here, especially, but we're talking about two different threat types,
right.
Known threats and unknown threats. So in terms of known threats, when you think about it from a malware perspective, most antivirus, anti-malware software today is looking at things that we already know about, writing signature files and saying, okay, here's a pattern, here's something, maybe it's changed its executable name or something trivial,
That's right.
But we actually had a pattern for it to detect. But what happens in the case where it's unknown? We actually track also from an IP protection standpoint around 1.7 million IPs of people that are doing harmful things within email or sharing bad links, those types of things to really compromise data security for organizations. We track that on our side, on the Microsoft side, to make sure you can benefit from that, not have to go in individually and configure every IP manually. But there's also unknown threats too, right?
That's right. And this is where you have the threats from the zero-day protection attacks. So for example, an attacker has written a code right now, and for the next 1 hour or 2 hours, all the antivirus engines will be adding up, and they will try to get that signature. But during that 1 to 2 hours, there might be an attack to your company, and that's where we have to protect against those unknown threats. At the same time, there might be some other phishing links. Some attackers may dupe some phishing link inside a good-looking link, and your users may not be aware of that. So we have to provide protection against those scenarios as well.
Right, so we've got a couple of demos to show. We want to take a look at some of the common attack vectors, so why don't we actually show some things
it's a demo to show.
that we're doing. All right. So the first thing that you're going to want to do as an attacker typically is you might have something where you want to actually spam people. You want to actually get as many people as you possibly can. So I've actually got in my case scripts already built for you because I want to be able to take your Contoso Bank ATP address and really compromise that if I can. So if I go into my scripts folder, I've actually got a lot of your users already identified in a CSV file. So I've been basically looking through all your websites, everything else to see who's there, and I can zoom in a bit on these people so you can see all these different potential victims that I have. Now what I can do if I want to is I can author a PowerShell script because I want to automate all of this stuff in terms of my spamming. I'm a bit more sophisticated than the average bear in terms of people spamming. So I've got my PowerShell script that's going to inject in the HTML, send it out to everybody in that CSV file, and then compromise you. So what can you do there in terms of being able to help?
Yeah, Jeremy, in general, the bulk spam, and spam in general is a big concern. Almost 2/3 of the traffic is spam. So it is a big concern. But once we know that you're a known spammer, we now have some more advanced controls, such as the advanced bulk spam control, the bulk mail enhancements that we have made.
Okay, so how would I be able to actually modify some of those things?
Well, out of the box, we actually assign values. We assign native figures to each of the messages that are coming through. We assign it based on different criteria. We look at the sender of the message. We're looking at the IP addresses from which it has been sent from. We're looking at the frequency of the mailing. And we're also looking at if someone has actually marked that document as junk. And based on this, the system will basically then classify and show you a rating from 1 to 9. And Jeremy can actually pull up one of his slides here where we can actually talk through about how those ratings look like. So for example, if the rating is from 1 to 3, this is where the bulk mail message is not really coming from a bulk sender. But if the rating is higher, this means that there's more risk involved. And this is where, you're, as an admin, you can enforce certain actions. I can create a policy which will basically classify those messages higher bulk classification rating, and I can take corresponding actions on them.
So even beyond all that, we have also the capabilities to be able to do malware scans inside of mails. And I think a lot of people have seen this today, so we're not going to show that demonstration here in this show.
Yeah.
But basically what happens is we run any mail through 3 different malware detection engines, kind of like what you would expect in terms of being able to say, what are some of the patterns, some of the known files, some of the things that we might want to protect. Because if I go from trying to spam you and doing one-by-one attacks,
right.
The next thing I'm going to probably want to do is actually email him any malware that I've already got. The problem with that is you'll have to know about it, but in a lot of cases, you might. So going beyond what we're doing in the malware space, we can actually do more advanced things and be able to protect you from things that are unknown, as you mentioned earlier, using our brand new system called Advanced Threat Protection.
That's right. I mean, here in my policy, for example, let me walk you through some of the things that we just talked about. The first thing that we talked about before the malware was around the protection we are offering for bulk emails. So I've logged into my Exchange Admin Center, and if I go into Protection tab, this is where we have the content filtering. And this is where if I open all my default policies that I've already set up for my organization, I can see that there's some spam settings that I've marked here. And this is where we have the default bulk spam filtering control. And you can specify the bulk messages that are coming through, and the system will identify a classification level for them. That's the bulk spam example that we are talking about. By default, the value of the threshold is 7. So any messages that are coming higher, you can block them by assigning a value which is low enough. So the key here is higher the threshold value, the more the bulk spam messages that can come through. The lower the threshold, the less the bulk spam that can come in. And Jeremy, you talked about some of the malware filtering approach. I mean, that's also natively built within Exchange Online Protection. So you mentioned that we have 3 different antivirus engines that we look. And at the same time, what we are guaranteeing is every single attachment is going to go through at least 2 of these antivirus engines. So based on the scanning, we will be able to take certain action from them. So for example, again, in my Exchange Admin Center, I can go to the malware filter, and again, have a default policy here. And this is where you can specify how you want to handle such attachments which contain unknown malicious malware. So here in this case, I've easily specified that I want to delete the attachment, but at the same time, I want to make sure that my users are aware of that. I also want to make sure that my incident management team is aware of that attack. So I can generate a notification back for the user and also the administrator so that they are knowing exactly what's going on.
All right, but this is kind of current state of the art. This is stuff that's already existing. So why don't we transition into stuff that's brand new, that's not even really totally available yet? It's all in preview or something now,
currently on in private preview, so it's the first look.
It's all in private preview even. So why don't we have a look at some of the new things that we can do around protecting for unknown threats?
That's right. So there are 2 really cool capabilities that we are adding to our service for the advanced threat protection. The first capability is called as the safe attachment. And how the safe attachment works is now every single message in Office 365 by default goes through 3 different antivirus engines. And it also goes through multiple spam filters. But for any message which does not have a known signature, now classically the zero-day threat attacks, for example, which do not have a known signature, we now have a dedicated sandbox environment. And
I've got an actual how it works flow here on my PC. So if we look at what happens with safe attachments, the great thing is we have an isolated environment. So after we go through our normal filtration for spam and for malware, we can then say, okay, with advanced threat protections and safe attachments, we can redirect into an isolated environment, what we like to sometimes call a detonation chamber.
That's right.
And scan this for known bad things, right? What kind of things are we scanning for?
We're looking for different things. We're looking for whether this is something that is going to run an executable. Is it asking for access privileges? Is it asking for some other things which are malicious? And we're using a variety of machine learning things behind the scenes to decide whether it's really using or calling any of those scenarios.
And this isn't just a cursory scan. This is something where we're actually pounding against that file for several minutes.
That's right.
Between 5 and 10 typically minutes, in terms of being able to detect anything in that attachment. So it's really getting hit with thousands of different checks in that isolated environment to make sure that it can infect your environment or ours on the service management side to make sure that we're protected. So that's one thing, but even beyond this, why don't we show what that looks like actually in the...
Yeah, let's do that. So what you will notice here within our Exchange Admin Center, we now have a different tab altogether. It's called Advanced Threat. And within the Advanced Threat, we see 2 different filters that come up on the top. The first one, like I said, is Safe Attachment, which is the first feature we are launching as part of Advanced Threat Protection. I've already set up a policy here by default for my organization, and there's also a default policy that I've set up previously. But if I try and open this, you can see here that I've set up a policy which defines that any time an attachment comes in which does not have a known signature that we have not been able to catch, we can take actions against that attachment. In this case, the action I've decided to take is simply block that attachment. So the recipient of that message does not receive that attachment, his account is not compromised, his machine is not compromised. But at the same time, I want to track those attachments. I want to track those emails. I want to find details about them. And that's where I've been able to redirect that same message back to the admin of the company. And again, because it's based on exchange transport rules, you can apply this to certain users of your company or certain organizations or certain role groups. So really easy way to set up the advanced threat protection policies.
Really great. So we've actually got the error messages already set for advanced threat protection. So I've actually authored some brand new malware. I've sent it to a colleague of mine, or I've sent it inside the Contoso ATP account, or anything that's protected by advanced threat protection. And what you'll get as the admin, because you've defined that rule to actually have any of those sent back to you, is the error message to say exactly what was that email. And since you specified I want to keep those components, I can actually take those different malware components and run them through a debugger or any other battery of tests that I want to see exactly what was up with those, what was wrong with them.
That's right, Jeremy. So for example, in this case, I'm looking at one of those incidents that has been reported. So what you're seeing here is one of the emails that come in from the email that Jeremy sent earlier, where he did have some of these zero-day attack attachments which did not have a known signature. And what we did behind the scene is we basically placed those attachments through our detonation chamber, which actually took that 5 to 7 minutes like we talked about. And after that, it generated a notification back to the administrator. So the admin can clearly see here that an email was sent and it contains certain attachments. I can actually get exact visibility into what the attachment looked like and what the message was, who was the sender, and all those details. These can again feed into the incident management team, and they can take credit further from that point.
And even building this demo is interesting because this was actually real malware. So we were actually dealing with that, and it was fun to get air-gapped machines for all of these things and using the tenants. But it all worked to the point where it caught everything. And we're able to see everything on this message here. But beyond even the safe attachments that we have, one of the main vectors that people are getting attacked with today, and one of the main attacker vectors, is getting people into a browser to either phish their credentials or get them to a link that can load malware onto their box. We have something for that as well, and it's called Safe Links. Why don't you explain how that works?
That's right. That's the second capability that we have as part of the advanced threat protection. And what Safe Links really allows you to do is to track each individual clicks in your company and also take actions on that click. So a lot of time what will happen is an attacker will send an email and that will get through, and that will not point to a bad link, but deep inside, 1 week later, he might change that link. He might redirect it to some other place. And at that point, if a user clicks on it, he's compromised because that link has already gone through. And this is where Safe Links can come in. So for example, I've already set up a policy here for my organization, and you can clearly see here that by default, I'm tracking any such links, and anytime any such suspicion links is found in our network, in our emails, we are blocking it. And I can also track those clicks. In this case, I've decided to track them individually so that I'm aware of who exactly in my company is getting targeted. I can also decide to make sure that certain links, which I know are safe, they can be marked. So for example, here, I have Bing.com and Microsoft.com. I know these links do not need to be rewritten again and again. So to reduce that latency, I've just specified them, and it's simply going to be ignored.
And if we move back to my machine, I have actually, in my case, sent or have received a mail that has some suspicious stuff in it. So I see here I got this link that Julia knows that I like gadgets and sci-fi, and I have to go to this place while I'm in Chicago. And if I click on that, you'll see that this was actually a spam link. This, in our case, was actually a known offender, a known IP address sending bad stuff. But let's say, for example, something makes it through with a forwarding link. They change that forwarding link's address after they've kind of tricked our system. We'll be able to, even after the mail's sent, go back and look and say, oh, he's re-forwarded that to a weaponized site that might be able to infect my machine or phish my credentials or whatever.
That's right. And another key thing here is it's not just from the end user perspective that you're aware that you can something has bad has come in and you can block it. From an admin side, I can also track those clicks. So for example, if I go back to my screen here, there's a new tab altogether within Mailflow. Now, a lot of our users are familiar with message trace because this is something that we allow our admins to discover information of any messages that are coming into their system. But now what we are adding with advanced threat protection is something we call URL trace. And if I come here, I can actually specify certain users of the company, and I can run this trace for, let's say, last 48 hours. Just before the show started, I actually was looking at some of the links and clicking on certain bad links. So I can see here that me as a user, I actually clicked on a link, and it was pointing to spamlink.contoso.com, and automatically that link got blocked because we found that to be suspicious, and we took that action accordingly.
So full auditing, again, playing onto the transparency, we want to make sure that all these different activities, and this is an Exchange example, but also in SharePoint, also the rest of Office 365, and in the future even going beyond all of that umbrella, that we have transparency across all these different services. So really, really cool stuff to protect us from the known vectors with things that we've had with Exchange Online Protection, as well as the unknown stuff that might be dynamically changing.
That's right.
Doesn't have signature files. We don't know where these links are going. These things are going to be stuff that's evolving over time that we'll be able to block, protect the user from, protect your organization from ultimately, using these new tools in advanced threat protection. So when does this actually come out? Because I know that we've been working fast on it, even faster than previously planned, right?
That's right. A lot of these capabilities are currently in a private preview with a selected set of customers, but all of them actually come very soon within this quarter. So end of this quarter, we should have the capabilities.
So
live.
End of this quarter, very exciting stuff. So of course, all of this information and more can be found on the Office blogs, as well as the Trust Center, trust.office365.com. Hopefully everybody enjoyed listening about advanced threat protection. Thank you all for watching, and goodbye for now.